Before I bring in the questions from the audience, I would like to make a loop back to the films we have seen or the topics we have seen before. And I would like to start with Barcelona, because this was a project, the project Housing for the Elderly, which is a program by the city, which is already in place since quite a long time. And the film shows 3 new projects where the elderly people live in apartments, in apartment units, and they have a reception where there is one person there the whole day. In case they need something, they can just go there. But there's also social program there. And what would be interesting to me, is to see in this long period of time where you have gained experience, is the typology of this unit with the single apartment, has it stayed on like this? Because, for example, what I mean is, in case I'm moving in with my partner and the partner is dying and then I don't want to be alone, is there a possibility, for example, to move in a bigger cluster? Are there bigger units? And then expanding on this question also, I'm wondering about generally the aspect of cross generations, because there are a lot of projects where housing for elderly is combined with kindergartens or things like this, or where there are young families who are very busy and elderly people can take care. So maybe I would be interested if these aspects are also part of this whole program, and how this is seen.
Thank you for the questions. We explained some things. As you have seen in the 3 examples, people are very happy to live there. It's a good look to have these apartments. You have seen also the 3 more recent projects in the first video. But there have been some evolution in the distribution of space to the flexibility, more open and circular use of structure of the apartments. And the essential fact is that you could live in your house, you have your house, and you have a community, you have a lot of facilities. This is maintained along these years. One of the advantages is that this kind of buildings must not have parking. This is an advance to not have subterranean structure for cars. And another thing that you say about the intergenerational experience, I know that in Vienna this is a good experience. You are in advance. I said you yesterday that for Barcelona, and I think for all the world that is interested in housing, Vienna is our reference from the Red Vienna to now. And we have houses for elderly people and apartments for young people. The experiments mixing the 2 generations had not been well last 15 or 12 years, and we will try new projects, and the city council will try new experience as co-housing senior and other kind of mixtures. But for the moment, the projects are separated. Elderly people and young people. One thing at last that I will point out, that perhaps could be some confusion about the fees, the financiation, is that all the financiation of this project came from the Barcelona City Council, not from the Catalan government. In fact, the fee, the money come from the City Council itself and from European Union, but not from Catalonia government and not from Spanish government. This is very important because it's an initiative, an experience made only from Barcelona City Council.
Actually, because you're saying this, does this also exist in other cities in Spain? For example, in Madrid, this program?
this program of elderly people. Exactly, this program not is only is an invention in Barcelona from 15, 18 years that were invented this kind of apartments, 40, 45 square meters, and this idea to have the different facilities is a step between the free life in the family and the residence for all people that are not independent. Is a very good solution for this phase of the life, no, 60 years, 70 years that people could live with their independence. Now we have invented a new kind of program that are more little apartments for homeless, for people that have been evicted from their house, for people with very big economical problems. And the name is dwellings, allotjaments, that they have 30, 35 square meters and more facilities, more collective facilities. And this is a special solution that is not for elderly people, but for other areas of people that need housing almost for some months or some years.
Okay. Thank you. I think actually this living together and also this mixing of generation in particular, I think is also a benefit of this co-housing concept. Maybe Katharina, you want to talk a bit about it, because Katharina, I would like to share with the audience that you are not only planning cooperative housing, but your office is actually situated in one of it, and you're also living in another project in a co-housing. So you are basically the person who can tell about from all perspectives how it is to live there, how it is to plan and to work there, basically. So maybe you want to expand a bit on your experience and also on the notion. I think that, I don't know, moving in something like this, you can also grow old there. You know, it's also helping each other.
Yes, thank you. I think it's also one of the motivations for co-housing that generations can live together. For many people that move into co-housing, that they think about, how do I want to grow old in the city? How do I want to raise my children in a city? And to not leave that only to the individual as an individual problem or decision, but to make it in a more community-based, to organize it in a more community-based way. And so I think this social dimension of housing is very important. And in co-housing, it really gives you many more possibilities and options. For instance, I live in a co-housing as a family with my little daughter. She's 7, and my mother also lives in the same house in her own apartment. And so I, from the community, but also especially from my mother, I have a lot of support raising a child. So this is my perspective as a mother that is very important for me. But especially also for the dimension for older people, I think this mixing of generation gives a lot of possibilities, because they can take responsibility for other people in the house, and so it somehow keeps them young and independent also, and healthy. So my mother said she's happy to be surrounded by young people and not only people of her generation, because it keeps her young. But of course, it is also important that not everybody can live in a co-housing. It also needs resources, time resources, and and you need to have access to that kind of housing. So I think it is also very important to think of new ways of living together in a more community-based way, but organized by institutions. And so I think that all these new forms are very important. So it's not only about co-housing or mixing of generations, it's also about finding new forms for elderly so that they can stay independent as long as possible, but not being in hospital or in an institution where they lose their independence. So yeah, maybe that is kind of a connection to the project in Barcelona.
Yeah, I would like to go to Buenos Aires now, because I think already in the films you also saw that this is quite a different dimension in a way. But in the film you saw, it was also a lot about this togetherness, and also the identity, which played a crucial role here in the housing project, which was shown in the Buenos Aires film, in next to the informal settlement of Barrio 20. And yeah, the identity that is basically created also to the neighborhood, to responsibility. Then you would develop a responsibility of caring for the neighborhood and for the community. But what is interesting, I think, in the Buenos Aires project as well, is how it is situated in the city. As you have seen, it is next to this river, and which is an area which has quite a huge nature next to it, but it was always somehow experienced or perceived as something that is more on the outskirts, and so they used this plot of land to also make housing projects in the 60s and 70s, which were these megastructure projects, where basically this sense of belonging and this sense of togetherness was completely lost there in a way. And this is also very close to where the new housing project is, next to this informal settlement. And why I'm telling you all this is because Anna has shown her lovely houses, which I hope we have time to talk about this later on, but she's also done research on the morphology of informal housing, and in comparison to the mega structures. And I would be interested to hear your perspective. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on this, and then also your opinion on the housing project, which we have seen in the building, in the film in Buenos Aires.
Sure. What I was telling you the other day is our research from Super Sudaca about the mega blocks done in Latin America after World War II. Where happened with the apartments is, as people were as time passes, people trying to build on and appropriate the communal spaces and making a kind of implosion on the shared spaces, and trying to make it private. And this kind of mega blocks would not accommodate the growth of the families because they were stiff in comparison to the informal settlements that, as they are organic and they are informal, but they have a form of growing, that it means that when a settlement is done, an informal settlement is done, the first family takes the ground, and then the parents build another floor and live on top of them. And then when the grandparents are born, then there's a third floor. So the family grows and the housing grows with them. As the construction is made out of concrete and they leave the columns to be able to keep on growing on top. And this is not allowed in these huge mega blocks. So this is something that I put on a, that we talk about the research, on the research that is really to learn from in the informal settlements. It's something that it's organic, and it's something good for the people. So going back to this new development done in Barrio 20, I think the scale of it is really good because they maintain this ground floor with more floors, and the variation of the heights, that it really goes together with the villa there. And it's really good that they don't move the people from one place to another one, and they keep it on the place, so the neighbor ties and the family ties remain. And it's really good, these civic squares that they do in the middle, so when the mothers are cooking, they can watch through the window the children playing, and this relationship with the exterior and the public space that the villas have still remain on this project. So I think it's a good project. It's a very good project, and there's a change in the government also on the scale of the consortium. That people, if you make a smaller consortium, it's much easier to get on well with the neighbors, because the discussion is not about hundreds of people, but around 10, maybe 10 families or less people, less problems, let's say, to discuss these kind of matters. So I think this project really learns from the visions, and it's a huge development on housing policies in Buenos Aires.
Thank you very much for this answer. So there are a lot of questions coming in. So I think I will just start to read them out to you. So the first one is a question from Barcelona to Josep Maria Montaner. The question was, which is the most important difficulty that Barcelona City Council faces to build social housing in the city center and not in the periphery?
Yes, the main difficulty is the ownership of the land, because there is a public land, especially in the periphery or in the old infrastructure, stations, seaport structures, and it's not easy to have public plots in the center, especially in the most representative center. For this reason, we have changed the urbanistic rules, making necessary that the 30% of the all new promotion and total refurbishment of all buildings must leave 30% for affordable housing on rent or property or as owner. This is the mechanism to have public housing around all the city, because, as I said before at the beginning, the public land is essentially in the periphery. That is a result of the history of urban design or urban planning, urban policies in the city, that the big infrastructures had changed and had become public. But well, this is especially is a problem of land, and also is a problem that the empty lots are also in the periphery, in the old city, in the Ensanche, in the Gracia, and all villages around, all city structures are more too dense and are finished, and there are empty plots, especially in these areas of increasing, and in general are in the periphery of the city. I don't know if the answer is that you want, the person that had made this question.
I have maybe a question here, which also connects to the things we have talked before on what you said, Katharina, as well, that it's not only the co-housing, which is basically the solution, but there must be more approaches to it. And there is this question which asks, how can residential buildings be planned as flexible as possible for the future usage we don't know? So basically, trying to see how basically in which forms we could live together. I mean, this is probably also a question to all participants here who could maybe have a say on this. Also with the, we were touching on it with the typology and the flexibility in housing on the elderly, for example, we have already mentioned this. So, and also
Maybe, yeah.
what Anna, yeah, what Anna showed us with her exterior space. But Katharina, please.
Maybe I can start with an answer because I think that flexibility also has many dimensions. The one is the spatial dimension, that the construction has to be flexible to house other forms of living in the future. So we do not know the future, and it's not possible to make architecture now that will fit in 30 years, I think, exactly. So that is why I think the structure has to be flexible, then at least the hardware is able to change. And the other dimension is maybe also what Anna showed is the access to this change. Who is able to decide about the change of a house? And this had a lot to do with ownership, of course, who is owning the house and who is able to make this decision. And this is a dimension that is also very important in our projects, that the house belongs to a community that decides on long term how the house changes, how the spaces in the house change. And if you move out, you give back the flat to the community that decides of the evolvement of the house. And in Vienna also, of course, because we have these non-profit developers, and if housing stays in one hand in the hand of a developer that is not only interested in profit, it also gives kind of flexibility for the future, that it will fit to the basic needs of the future users. But I can give the word maybe to Anna also, because I think it's something that she addressed in her research, and it's very interesting how to see this balance. Yeah.
Thank you, Katerina. Yes, we have it. We take it into account very much, because in Argentina, at least, as we have this, I call it weak law. There's a certain regard that it's not watched over. So people are always building a little bit more after the completion of the work. So between the neighbors, you have to adjust if it's allowed to do it. While, I mean, it's hard to say it, but this happens, this informal, what you see in the villas, that not everything is informal, then in the formal city, it happens a little bit. So people always grow a little bit on the balconies, on the upper floor, in the terrace, or on the exterior places that they might do it. So we need to contemplate it on the exterior. I mean, we as architects, we should acknowledge it. And also in the interior, it happens, and this is normal, as we build in concrete, so something stays. I mean, if you do a plan that allows for changes, then the services are the things that are not moved. But then people usually change a lot in the interior, as it's not that expensive. The working the paying of the workers is not that expensive. So it's something that people do a lot in the apartments. They go changing. And we as architects, we think it in advance because we know it will happen.
I think, Josep Maria, I mean, it's also your topic of research. I would be interested to hear your opinion on it.
Yes. No, in fact, from the European culture, for us seems very far this problem of informality on the city, on housing, but it's very important for all the world, all the planet. And in fact, in our cities, in some moments, there were informal urban forms. No, I think when we work as consultants in Sao Paulo and in Buenos Aires, we study especially this problem of the slums, favelas or villas that had been transformed. Some part had remained with a lot of improvements, especially in facilities and the quality of public space. And behind had been built new modern buildings, a formal urban design. I think in the case of Villa 20 that I had visited 1 year before, the main question is the balance between the old, the favela or villa, and the new, the modern buildings, the space, the interface between them, between people that choose or must remain in the favela or in villa, improve it, and people that have choose to be removed to the new buildings. And this creates some tension, some difficulties. And I think the key, the question key is in this in between this public space, the facilities, and the relationship that will be created in this space between the old and the new. And I think this is the key, that because you could make well the intervention in the slum and make dignity, affordable housing and new housing, but you must improve, we must care the social relation between them, between this kind of two urban structure, informal and formal, that must be together.
Yeah, I think this would be the very interesting next topic to talk about, how basically the housing and the public realm is connected, and how it's basically influencing each other. But unfortunately, I have only 5 minutes left, and I would like to ask you one maybe last statement. I thought maybe for you, what do you think is a most important step that has to be taken in order? I mean, we heard already some aspects or some notions and opinions already, but what is important for a caring togetherness, and what would be the next steps really being necessary in each city and each country? I'm
the first, again.
Yes, well, please start.
In 1 or 2 minutes. There are a lot of things in the wall of the housing. All the things, all the relations, all the life is related. We must do think for the housing for the post-pandemic situation or this new world. A lot of things might change, flexibility, common spaces, sun, exterior spaces, and a lot of things. A new kind of healthy in housing, and a new kind of relationship. But I think the most important, and for this reason is very interesting, this debate and this activity in open house worldwide, is to know the experience from other cities, to share the experience, to share, to study inside this field of the housing studies that are very important in academic world, but also in the real life. It's very important to know the experience, the things that work, the things that are bad, and to know how is the reality, no? How are the problems, how are the things successful, and to share all these experience, no? And understanding that the situations in every city and every country are different, no? But you could learn a lot sharing our experience, no? I think this is one of the things more important, that is one responsibility from our technical class, no? The architects, engineers, the professionals that are working in this knowledge and this practice. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Katarina, do you want to say?
Just very short. I also think it's
Yes.
very interesting now to share these different experiences on housing in the different countries and cities, because it shows that housing is something very local, and it really much depends on the political surroundings, on the condition of the society, and it has to find local solutions. But watching the global dimension, you can see what will happen if something is in disbalance. So I think it's very interesting to see how other countries are dealing with which problems they are dealing, and to think of what we have here and what could happen to our system of housing. I think housing should really, in Vienna especially, maybe address now the ecological and social dimension very much, because we are in a very lucky situation with housing, with the housing in Vienna, but still I think the global problems, the ecological problems, and also the upcoming social problems, not only because of the pandemic, but the growing differences between the poor people and the rich people, are really urgent, and also are not so far away from Vienna as we might think. So yeah, maybe these two fields, the ecological and the social field, are for me now the most important to address with the topic of housing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not sure if we have lost Anna now. She seems that her image froze. We did, okay. Then I will say thank you very much to the three of you. It was really exciting to talk to you, and I wish we would have much more time. I mean, we just touched upon some questions, and there are so many questions coming in which I couldn't address. But yes, thank you very much. Also for the audience, please stay tuned. The next 3 hours will look into architecture and the climate crisis, starting with Basel, with comparing 3 innovative approaches in 3 buildings. So stay tuned. And I would also like to thank David, who is our technical expert here and the hotspot in Vienna. And he does a great job here behind the scene. Enjoy, and thanks a lot. It was a pleasure talking to you. Goodbye.
Bye.
A pleasure.